A quick disclaimer before we get into the video proper. Due to the nature of how the LOONAverse is told and portrayed throughout the group's history, this video will not be able to go into every detail about the storyline. If we were, we'd be here all day, and I'd rather not have a repeat of my last theory analysis video. This is exactly why I took it down. The purpose of this video is to give people a more generalized discussion on the history of LOONA's storyline, how it evolved, the facts we do know, and the more widely accepted interpretations. While I am going to be discussing my own personal theories as well, I'm going to try and be as matter-of-fact as I can be and leave enough details open for everyone to come to their own conclusions. This video is not meant to be a guide on the group, the members, or their history in the industry, as we're mainly focusing on the fictional universe and how its story was portrayed over the years. Nor is this video going to go in depth on the history of Blockberry as a company or their abuse of the members over the years. If that's something you want to learn more about, there are a number of videos I recommend watching instead, including Into Orbit's What Went Wrong video, Moonfall's ongoing LOONA story retrospective series, Felt 2000's first part of their pre-debut history analysis, Ploopy678's history analysis video, and probably a bunch more that I'm either forgetting or haven't seen. Or you could watch my other LOONA guide video that I did on this channel where I discuss more of the general group structure and history under Blockberry over there. I highly advise doing your own research on the matter, as many sources can be readily accessed thanks to translators like Team Subbits, Ori, and Little John on platforms like Twitter and Reddit. I don't know if the Reddit thread is still up, so maybe check Twitter, or even go to Team Subbits' official website, on top of the multitude of K-pop fans both within the fandom or those who know of LOONA sharing their own views on what they've experienced. I am but a single person, and my word should not be treated as God. As for the lore side of things, if you want a more in-depth analysis on the finer details of the storyline, I highly recommend checking out the channel Luminosity. They're currently up to the first part of Odd Eye Circle's pre-debut releases as of the making of this script. They did announce that there was a bit of a delay on the second part of that, so we don't know when that will be up. Otherwise, there are a ton of channels that have shared their own theories and interpretations, and I encourage anyone who is curious about learning about the lore and developing their own theories to seek them out. There's no right way of interpreting the story, and not every theory should be treated as fact. There are a ton of details about the LOONAverse story that are purposefully vague or left up to personal interpretation. Just remember to be civil with other fans when discussing theories. No matter what your opinion may be regarding someone else's theories or opinions regarding the group, their music, or how they interpret the fictional storyline, hate is not something that we stand for. LOONA and their LOONAverse are, at the end of the day, like any other form of art that is meant to be subjective, and we should all respect each other's viewpoints when sharing them. Got it? Okay. Picture this for me. The date is September 7th, 2019. It's a Thursday, and it's the year that I graduated from college. It had been a month since I performed a production over the summer with friends old and new, and what I hadn't known at the time would be my final bow on that stage and any other theater stage for the time being. We had made plans to meet up again in the fall to do an instant Shakespeare production of the Scottish play, if you know you know. And then life went on. I had my 21st birthday. I went back and forth playing 2 different mobile games on my phone, one of which is no longer in service anymore. I was obsessing over Matsui Jurina releasing her first single from her self-written album, and I had finalized a translated script of SKE's production of Hamlet, which was really good, by the way, highly recommend that. While I couldn't tell you the finer details of how this particular day got started or what all I did during that time, there was one thing that stuck out to me. As I was scrolling through my YouTube subscription box, I had instinctively clicked on and watched a video from a certain React channel that I was a fan of at the time. I don't really keep up with them that much anymore, kind of a long story with that. I just fell out of touch with them. This particular video featured a group that, unbeknownst to me, would change everything. But for whatever reason, I clicked on the video and was greeted by this. honestly a bit overwhelming. Right from the get-go, I am hit with the visuals of 12 very pretty young women, all screaming, cheering, dancing, and singing to their own songs. I don't know any of their names or who they are as people, just that they're idols. They seem pretty competitive, and one of them got made fun of for their running style, apparently. I don't think I fully absorbed all the information that was thrown at me. I didn't stop to read all the text, nor went back and replayed any of the songs as they were being played in a quality where I couldn't really hear them quite well. It was just really chaotic. Looking back, I really don't know why I clicked on that video to begin with when I didn't even know the group at the time. It really was just more of a compulsion more than anything else. Regardless, I still watched it all the way through, went about the rest of my day, and soon the memory of that video faded to the back of my mind. Fast forward a month later, it's October 22nd, a Tuesday. I had just woken up and checked my phone to see a backlog of messages left behind by two friends I had known from my Tumblr fanfic writing days. One of them was talking about a group whose name I couldn't remember, yet was thoroughly intrigued by their wording of the group's concept being anime-ish, about how they were characters with their own storylines and theories, and even sharing one of the big channels at the time that had talked about said theories. While I couldn't tell you the finer details about how that particular day went, the curiosity of this new group my friend recommended to me had gotten the better of me. So I searched for a playlist with all of their music videos at the time and started with the very first one. The thumbnail had a picture of a girl named Jhun and showed her laying down with a red spider on her face. Creepy, admittedly, but I was nonetheless intrigued to check it out, so I clicked on the video and started watching. By the end of November, I was hooked. I had marathoned the entire playlist of music videos and theory analysis breakdowns within weeks. I began sharing my own theories, not just with my friend who recommended them to me, but also on Twitter and eventually Wattpad. I started writing a fanfic adaptation of the lore based on my own interpretation and theories, a project which quickly evolved from where it had started to become one of the most unique writing experiences I ever had. LOONA not only catapulted me down the K-pop rabbit hole when I was previously just a casual fan who enjoyed a handful of groups, but the storyline of the LOONAverse had inspired me in more ways than one. By the time 2020 rolled around, I was fully immersed into their world and wanted to see where it would go from there. And boy did it go places! While LOONA were certainly not the first ever K-pop group to have recurring motifs or a fictional storyline or theories surrounding their filmography, just look at groups like EXO, Red Velvet, G-Friend, or even as early on as Oh My Girl, the idea of a K-pop group having a dedicated lore wasn't really common. You would more often see groups doing one-off concepts or self-contained stories that fit with the given theme of one particular song. LOONA was the first group where every release had some narrative significance to a grander storyline and built into a fictional universe, chock full of symbolism and open-ended cinematography that could give everyone a different interpretation of what was going on. There was no one true correct way to analyze or explain what the LOONAverse was, or at least, if there was one, we weren't meant to know about it. This was the passion project of the group's original creative director, Jhun, and when teamed up with the likes of Monotree's music and Digipetty's visual styling, the LOONA style became more and more cohesive. It became easy to recognize what made a LOONA song, what made a LOONA music video a LOONA music video, and what recurring motifs to look out for as the LOONAverse started to grow and expand even further. Until something changed. Twice. Not the group twice, I meant there were two big changes that happened. Looking back on everything now, holding the knowledge we have on what actually went down with the group's former company, Blockberry Creative, and now all the members are split up in different directions, it's been made clear, to me at least, that the LOONAverse has and will likely continue to undergo some massive changes. The first was when Jaden and Blackberry had a falling out and the former left, with the company shifting focus towards the mainstream in order to garner better domestic success with the group. The second was with the lawsuit the group held against Blackberry following the expulsion of member Chuu and their subsequent victory, leading to them terminating their exclusive contracts with them and separating. They're not officially disbanded, as the members will continue to say on and on, but LOONA's current activities as a 12-member group have effectively gone into a bit of a standstill. LOONA and the lore had experienced not one, but two drastic shifts that permanently altered the way the LOONAverse was being represented, to the point where some people claimed for a period of time that the lore was dead. So, what happened here? How did the LOONAverse change after these massive events? How is it continuing to evolve after the group has parted ways with Blackberry? Is the lore really dead, or has it simply changed into something new? Why don't we talk about that today? Let's talk about the LOONAverse. As of right now, I think it's easy to say that LOONA's pre-debut lore timeline has the most complete storyline. While there's definitely some debate on what order certain events took place, it still has a clear beginning, middle, and end point, starting with LOONA 1/3 introducing us to the world, Odd Eye Circle adding a new twist and introducing us to Middle-earth, and YYYY and Eden tying everything together, with Hi serving as an epilogue showing the group finally uniting as one. Butterfly does start to throw a wrench into matters, but we'll discuss that in a bit. Much of what was introduced during pre-debut had become the core of many staples of the storyline, even persisting to this day. Since it was also very early into the group's tenure, that also meant that theory crafters who made dedicated, in-depth analyses were extremely precious. However, this also becomes a bit of a double-edged sword, as due to the inherently vague nature of how Jaden and Blackberry chose to portray the storytelling, along with misconceptions born from a lack of information or the way certain details were presented, any theories that were popular enough to gain a mass amount of traction in the community became accepted as fact. If you were in orbit who was invested in the lore and looked at the most popular theory channels at the time, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Statements like, Heejun is the god of the LOONAverse and created the other members, Hyunjin is the original third member of OEC and switched places with Cherry, or Olivia is a fallen angel and killed Vivi. This would ultimately become a problem for theorists later on down the line, as once people started pointing out the contradictions, clearing up misconceptions, and over time, those popular lore theorists became inactive during the hiatus period between Butterfly and So What, many of these older theories have since been denounced by newer fans of the group. Even I can personally attest to having latched onto some of the more now controversial theories at the time, but that was mainly due to the fact that I didn't really have any other information to go off of. I forgot to look at the video descriptions for YouTube videos, even though my friend mentioned in our group chat that story information was included in there. And as soon as I finished watching all the music videos, I went straight into the theories, because I thought, well, that's it, there's nothing else to look into. I didn't see any of the supplementary content like teasers or the cinema theory videos, It just left me more confused than where I started off from. Since my first official comeback with the group was in early 2020, I can only imagine what it must have been like for fans who had joined during pre-debut. Heck, those of them who followed since the beginning with Heejin, and how different theory crafting must have been then compared to what I experienced and what newer fans who came in after me and after everything else that happened might have experienced themselves. All this to say that LOONA's pre-debut era was packed with lore pretty much everywhere curious fans could go looking for it. From teaser captions and images hinting at lore for a member's character arc, to exclusive events dedicated to talking about the group's filmography and showing off never-before-seen footage tying key plot beats together. These aforementioned events, the cinema theory and study group events, had members actively attending and even confirming some details of certain moments. And were it not for a few fans courageously recording some of the exclusive lore clips that were shown in these cinemas, they would have no doubt had become lost media to a majority of the fandom who couldn't attend them. Seriously, there are tons of videos that were only shown once during exclusive events or concerts that have been nicknamed lost media, as they've never been officially uploaded on any streaming platform by Blockberry. The only one that did was a teaser focused on YYXY called 1. I'd struggle to even call it a teaser, as it's more than a few minutes long, and functions more as a short film that sort of caps off the lore arc of their storyline. Case in point, many people thought that the YYXY 1 short film was a teaser for their eventual repackage album of their debut EP, an album which was never released, likely due to the company wanting to push for the full group's debut. And then there's the music itself. The lyrics to LOONA's music is another huge part of the group's identity, as due to the structure of the group focusing on each girl with a solo to establish their roles in LOONA and in the LOONAverse, and introducing recurring themes and motifs that become important to the group and their identity as a whole as more and more members keep adding on, analyzing the lyrics is as important to understanding the lore as their filmography. Now, there is definitely some debate as to how much of these songs are lore significant, especially nowadays, but I do still think that a lot of the current releases still touch upon themes and reference key aspects of LOONA's identity. In pre-debut, however, a lot of that was more pronounced since this was essentially our introduction to the group. It's the equivalent of an establishing scene of a new character in a TV show or a movie. You want the viewers to get a good grasp on the character's personality and what role they'll play in the story early on, so that later down the line you'll grow to care about that character and want to see where their journey goes. I personally view a large portion of the songs from LOONA's discography as part of their world building. Like, these songs could have either previously existed within the fictional world of the LOONAverse and we're seeing the girls put their own spin on it, or the songs are being created by the girls themselves as they slowly meet each other and form the group. And I do actually think there's evidence to support this, from as early as Heejin's vivid acoustic mix music video just being a collage of behind-the-scenes snippets of her time and photo shoot in Paris, to the Letter to Hong Kong video shown exclusively at the Cinema Theory events. There's a clear overlap between the members' real lives as idols to their fictional counterparts in the LOONAverse. Much like how a musical uses the music within the story to develop the world and the characters, LOONA uses their own music to expand the story of their fictional universe. To me, it's clear that Jaden had a lot of dedication on how he wanted the LOONAverse to be portrayed, but now, given everything that we learned went down with Blockberry, he was likely forced to work in increasingly high restrictions on his vision as the company kept pushing back. Just based on LOONA 1/3 alone, had Jaden been given the full range and funds to have his original creative vision fully realized, the LOONAverse was going to be probably the most expensive project not just for a K-pop group, but any artist, period. And while after 1/3 they were able to work within the more restricted budget and hold a decent amount of cash for the occasional overseas shoot, there were probably still a lot of behind the scenes meddling going down until the final result of Jaden leaving. Now, with all that being said, do I think Jaden Jung is a perfect man?
No. I personally am someone who likes to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I also know that seldom anyone is truly perfect. I can definitely see that Jaden might have been very stubborn about how he wanted things to go down. The concept of LOONA's group structure is basically something he had since all the way back when he worked with Lovelies. I think it's important to keep in mind that there is still a lot of context that we're missing.
There is most likely still a ton of information about what truly went down in Blockberry that we are still not privy to. And sure, Jaden still has his fair share of controversy nowadays regarding usage of NFTs and AI art, but I also think a large part of that is just from the fact that he grew up in a specific culture that is very different from other places. And sometimes, especially in the K-pop industry, some of these cultural viewpoints that people who grew up in these environments find as perfectly normal can come off as, well, problematic in other places. But does that mean that Jaden Jung is just an evil, bad shit human being?
No! I'm not gonna defend Jaden as being the one true savior who can do no wrong, but I'm not gonna write him off as a complete villain either. 'Cause let's be real, we all know who the real villain is now. Obviously, since I wasn't a pre-debut LOONA fan, I can't speak on every accusation that's been thrown towards Jaden, as I simply do not have enough information to verify what is true or not. Just based on what I can glean from my experience as a newer fan and now following both ARTMS and S on a more casual level, now under Jaden's own company, and given everything that happened with LOONA after leaving Blockberry, my stance on him as a producer and a creative director is that, well, he just seems like a guy who's passionate about his work, can sometimes get tunnel visioned when focusing on how he wants something to be delivered, and is prone to making mistakes just like any human being. Which, honestly, same, but I think it's very possible that the reason why so many people in the fandom have, for lack of a better term, a raging hate boner for this guy, and this is just based on what I can gather, based on everything that happened after 2022, Blockberry essentially used Jaden as a scapegoat to cover their tracks and make him take the brunt of the backlash when something happened to LOONA. Because some of the stuff that I've seen people accuse Jaden of doing doesn't sound like something he should just be able to get away with. Like, pushing the members to follow a specific diet is one thing, since that is unfortunately something that is still common practice in the entertainment world at large, not just Korea and K-pop, but blaming him for Jinsol having a panic attack during an underwater filming scene for her music video because she didn't have enough time to train before they could start? I don't know what all a creative director does or has the final say in, but I feel like some of those accusations towards Jaden are things that are out of his control. Like, that specifically feels like something Blockberry should have put more time into, getting her prepared for that scene and taking more time for her to train for it. And even then, if Jinsol really did have a panic attack, I'm just glad that she didn't drown. I don't want to think about what could have happened if something went wrong during that particular shoot. That's legitimately scary. With all that being said, let's actually discuss a bit more about what the LOONAverse from 2016 to 2019 looked like. Starting with... In order to keep things simple, and since I know I'm probably going to be rambling a lot in this video, we're going to divide Era 1, as we'll call it, into 4 distinct parts, starting with the first subunit, LOONA 1/3, and the members Heejin, Hyunjin, Hostel, Yeojin, and VB. And yes, I am including Yeojin in this section because again, it's for simplicity's sake, and she's most commonly associated with this unit.
LOONA 1/3 storyline is our introduction to the LOONAverse, which may not be obvious at first given that a lot of the more hard-hitting plot beats don't start until we leave Earth. But that's the thing about 1/3. They're starting the story in the world of the familiar. Think about how in urban fantasy novels or anime where the protagonist gets sent off into another world, those stories don't have to establish the normal world where the main character lives. It's our world. Yes, the girls are traveling to all these different locations, France, Japan, Taiwan, but it's still our Earth. You can go to Jeju Island in Hungary to the locations that the girls filmed their more fantastical MVs at, but you aren't going to find purple grass fields with magic mirrors and 3 moons, nor is the castle in Hungary a boarding school in a utopian society. But you can go to Harajuku, you can find the crashed plane site in Iceland, you can see the school building in Hong Kong. Even if the fantasy elements aren't real, the world the story inhabits it is. And the first 5 members are all mostly normal girls living normal lives until they meet each other. All the fantastical symbolism of Hyunjin with a cat head, Hassel confronting a doppelganger of herself, and Yojin's frog prince boyfriend are meant to highlight the inner struggles each of them face in their daily lives, an exaggeration of what they themselves are feeling. Hyunjin is shy and lonely, so she feels like a cat. Yojin's childish personality is reflected in the cartoony world and her fairy tale-esque romance, with the frog prince standing in place of her in-universe boyfriend. Hassel shooting her doppelganger. Okay, actually, let's talk about that for a second. While the problems with the other 4 members are pretty straightforward, from boredom over a tedious lifestyle to relationship issues to feelings of isolation among peers, Hassel's situation is a bit more ambiguous. Out of the 5 solos in LOONA 1/3, Hassel is the most debated topic among orbits, as hers is the most vague about what it truly means. Some have interpreted Hassel's struggles at facing and accepting this more masculine-appearing version of herself as a trans allegory. Some people think that Bird Soul, as they've been nicknamed, is evil and possessed the real Hassel after she seemingly killed them. As for me, I've previously theorized that Hassel's actions were a metaphor for toxic idealism and perfectionism.
In my own analyses, I've taken to exploring several of LOONA's music videos in the context of dream interpretation, as they are one of the most brought up themes in their music, giving them great importance to LOONA's storylines. A lot of imagery and lyrics talk about the girls meeting or sharing a dream with someone else, and how those dreams move them profoundly. I wouldn't call it a stretch to say that the more fantastical imagery we see in LOONA 1/3 is the result of what we're seeing being dreams. Dreams that reflect their inner turmoils and desires, their wishes and their fears alike.
Remember how Heejin's music video is compared to Alice in Wonderland? And Alice in Wonderland is all about the main character entering a dream world while she sleeps? Heejin in Vivid is our Alice. And if we extend that to the other MVs, then each of the 5 members are at one point Alice as well. We're seeing what the world looks like through their eyes and how they view themselves. Vivi's solo Every Day I Love You is explicitly a recreation of her human memories, which is why everything is framed like a 90s music video. So for Hassel, whatever happened to her that we're seeing represented here, whether she had experienced some form of loss in a relationship with someone she saw as a literal reflection or other self, or it's a metaphorical internal battle with her own identity and self-image, the whole thing is portrayed in a rather somber and tragic light. And it is unfortunately not something we ever get clarity on. In a similar vein, something that wasn't as well explored as it could have been was Vivi's journey, because she's probably had one of the most interesting character arcs in LOONA 1/3, if not the whole group, and yet because of some company, Vivi ended up being one of the least utilized members in LOONA.
And that's a shame because portraying Vivi's struggles of trying to fit in as her being a literal robot can be super interesting. To me, when I started watching the MVs, the moment I truly felt the overarching narrative starting to be put into motion wasn't with Odd Eye Circle or YYYY's introductions, it was with Vivi. While I was mostly vibing to the other 4 members' MVs without really thinking too much on what their story arcs meant, Vivi's introduction in Love and Live was the first time I really stopped and tried to think about what was going on here.
When everything we've been shown up to so far is that the other 4 members are normal girls traveling around the world, each carrying their own story and their own personal struggles that I had yet to fully grasp, suddenly we're introduced to this pink-haired android who doesn't seem to fit in with her group, and that bothers her, leading to the ending of the MV where she unplugs her backpack, runs until the timer hits 0, and becomes human. I'd like everyone to keep this in the back of their mind for later. At the end of Love and Live, Vivi becomes human. And probably the worst part about this for Vivi's storyline is that we never get an explanation as to what happened to her that made her an android. I don't know if Jaden planned on giving an explanation or if the company didn't care to elaborate after he left, but it still feels like a missed opportunity for them. Maybe some people can more easily brush this off as insignificant and be satisfied without knowing an answer, but there is still going to be people who get hung up on it and call it a major plot hole that they never elaborated on this.
I mean, there is a reason why one of the most prominent, now controversial LOONA theories is Heju killing Vivi. With so little information to go off of, I have my own personal theory that Vivi's conversion into an android was most likely due to some sudden and tragic change in her life. A car accident, for example. Something I even elaborated on in my own fanfic series. As of now, it's still unknown if we're ever gonna get an answer to how Vivi became an android. However, if the current groups and their companies would rather focus on moving the story forward, then I'll respect their decision in that. Because Vivi's story at the end of the day was never about how or why she is an android, but rather that she became human after meeting the members of LOONA 1/3. That they accepted her and she felt like she was starting to fit in with them. Before we move on to Odd Eye Circle, let's go back a bit and start talking about Yojin.
Yojin has a pretty unique role in the story and the group, as she's both closely associated with LOONA 1/3, even being considered the slash in the group structure, and is also set apart from the rest of the group as a solo unit. Now, as I've talked about in my own guide video, the exact reasons for why Yojin didn't actively promote with LOONA 1/3 or participate in any of their unit releases is a bit unclear. But whatever the case may be, she's still most often grouped up with them in early content and OT12 content, when the only time she isn't with the 4 of them is to split the group into an even 4x4x4 ratio and pair her up with Odd Eye Circle. Even during the period of time when Hassel went on hiatus during Butterfly promotions, Yojin is with 1/3. And in terms of the story, outside of her close sisterly relationship with Hassel, she's also shown to be friends with Cherry, who is in Odd Eye Circle, and in future OT12 releases when Hassel was absent, she's sometimes paired up with Go-On, such as in the Star MV. But aside from these interactions, Yojin doesn't seem to play an active role in the story, and most notoriously was written off as being lost in the forest in Sunateen's album description. And we never get a resolution to that either! Or rather, we only get half of one. Maybe. Let me explain. There is a lot of speculation surrounding when certain events in LOONA's pre-debut timeline takes place. With everything after Butterfly, it's kept fairly consistent with no room as to speculate on which order things could have occurred in. But with pre-debut, there is some stuff that, whether it be due to the deliberate vagueness of the storytelling, or maybe some people were just overthinking the timeline and made things more complicated by accident? I don't know, I wouldn't put it past us. We have a bad habit of overthinking. and by we I mean orbits. It resulted in a few theories of how the timeline is supposed to play out. For example, we start with Heejin by herself in Paris, and then eventually she meets Hyunjin in Tokyo. Okay, simple enough. Hazel is then introduced, and after whatever she did in Iceland with her doppelganger happens, we jump right to Christmas when she's already met Heejin and Hyunjin in London. And unlike Hyunjin's solo MV, where the 10-minute film version shows us an after-credits scene of Heejin seeing a cat-head Hyunjin, there's no indication as to how Hazel could have met the girls.
The only assumption we can make here is that she could have probably met them off-screen before or after her solo MV occurred. Same with Yeojin, as after her solo MV, we mainly just see her with Hazel in My Melody. Either that or Let Me In takes place later in the timeline after Yeojin gets lost.
Vivi's introduction to the group and storyline is with LOONA 1/3's debut, Love and Live. But chronologically speaking, her solo MV technically takes place before that, as it is a reconstruction of her past memories. The other LOONA members are only there because her memories are broken, and she's likely remedying it by including her new memories with the members mixed in there. This also means Vivi has to have met Yeojin off-screen, or at the very least knows of her, since we never see them interacting with each other, but Yeojin is still there. When we consider this, it means Yeojin would have most likely had to have gotten lost sometime between Love and Live and Sonatine, and Hazel's Let Me In is either before she meets the girls or after Yeojin's disappearance. And this is just the Earth arc.
While there are theories speculating whether or not the Endless Forest or the Mobius Forest that Yeojin and the 1/3 members travel through in Sonatine is an actual forest, a cityscape, or perhaps even connected to Eden somehow, we're never really shown how the girls find her. What we are shown is Yeojin with Hazel and Cherry in Love Cherry Motion. So that must mean the girls found her, right? Except even that's up for debate with some theorists, because some people interpret that interaction as happening before Yeojin even got lost in the forest in the first place.
Even more so than just the lack of resolution to Yeojin's Lost in the Forest plotline, I think there could have been potential to build on this idea of her having a connection to every subunit while still being an independent solo unit. And it makes sense, doesn't it? She's the maknae of the group, and the rest of the LOONA members take on a big sister caretaker role for her. So having part of her storyline focus on the deepening of these connections with all three subunits could have made for a unique dynamic with her and the others, while still actively promoting her as a solo unit, showing her mature and grow both alongside LOONA and as an individual artist.
Hey, a girl can dream, can't she?
Heading into the second arc of pre-debut, the Middle Earth arc, or the Cosmos arc, OEC's Realm has been called both over the years, Odd Eye Circle was truly a turning point for both LOONA as a group and the story of the LOONAverse. No longer were we seeing dreamlike imagery mixed in with everyday life. The fantastical elements were now front and center, giving the unit an air of mystery and intrigue that pulled many new fans in with a darker and more mature concept.
You know it, I know it, we all know it. Everything that Odd Eye Circle were and are since Kimlip's Eclipse first dropped has been nothing short of iconic. And you know you've made something truly special when NASA puts your song on their playlist for the Eclipse. I'm not joking, that actually happened during the 2017 Eclipse.
Now, some people will argue that out of the three solos, Kimlip's has the least amount of lore to it. And I can see where some people would write it off as such, as the main focus of the MV is more centered around Lip's performance skills. But as I became more engrossed in the lore and going back to analyze it again, I actually think Kimlip's lore is there, it's just more subtle. It's easing the audience into the next arc of the story, in arguably a similar fashion to the 1/3 members, and it leaves room to develop and reveal more about her character later on.
If anything, her B-side solo, Twilight, is a great indicator on the potential depths of her character arc that they could have explored more if you know. Twilight feels a lot more somber compared to the allure and confidence of Eclipse. Kimlip sings about losing sleep, missing someone, and that's further expanded upon with Love Letter, her duet with Jinsul. The two of them have a great yin and yang dynamic that offset and balance each other out.
So yes, I do think Eclipse does have lore, if you think about what we're being shown means as an introduction to her character and the current arc of the storyline.
Like, you know those shows where they introduce a new, mysterious, yet powerful character that comes and helps the rest of the cast when they're in a crisis? Those characters that appear strong and all-knowing, but slowly we come to learn more about who they are and what they've been through underneath all the mystique of them being a total badass? That's Kim Lip. The mysterious blonde girl in red, the leader of Odd Eye Circle. She may not have the same kind of intrigue as Jinsul's morally ambiguous, darker nature tied to her blue beta fish as her animal, or Cherry's ability to travel through mirrors and having distinct connections with several members of both 1/3 and YYYY. But Kimlip has intrigue nonetheless because she is the one to establish Odd Eye Circle. Aside from Jinsul's pre-reveal appearance in Vivi's B-side Every Day I Need You, Kimlip is the first Odd Eye Circle member we see as an Odd Eye Circle member. She sets the tone for the arc going forward as she is the one to introduce us to the next chapter.
And because of that, it makes the contrast between her and Jinsul so striking. To go from a bright, fiery red and lips light, airy vocals to the deep, vibrant blues and powerful bass matched with Jinsul's striking voice and rap lines gets fans excited for what's to come next. And it strengthens even more when adding Cherry to the mix. With her solo starting off as an innocent, seemingly cute summer pop song, to an abrupt drop and dance break for the transition into the next verse, highlighting her capabilities to match Lip and Jinsul's girl crush energy. And everything regarding Cherry's introduction to the lore, establishing her friendship with Hustle and Yojin, the mysterious cherries tying into her power of dimensional travel, and her reflection seeming to have a life of its own. Even though Cherry's debut sparked a minor controversy with domestic fans, her addition to the unit and the storyline added yet another layer of intrigue as to what OEC was going to be like. After all, there's a reason why compilations of fans getting absolutely gobsmacked by Jerry's first dance break exists.
Bitch! And yeah, Love Cherry Motion was basically the first indicator that this girl would eventually be my bias. Heck, the first video edit I ever made on my personal channel was for Love Cherry Motion. If her song and her storyline didn't grab me the way that it did, enough to gravitate towards her sunny and bright personality coupled with her skills as a dancer and performer, she might not have become my main LOONA bias. She probably would have still ended up on my bias line, but regardless.
There is one other member who has a significant connection to Cherry here, Hyunjin. Following her very brief cameo in Girlfriend, and the Cinema Theory clip of Cherry performing a remix of Love and Live with the rest of LOONA 1/3, fans began to speculate that the two had switched places. That Cherry was supposed to be part of LOONA 1/3, and Hyunjin was supposed to be part of Odd Eye Circle.
I personally have also dabbled with this theory in my own fanfic series, but my stance on the concept has slowly changed over the years. While I no longer believe that Hyunjin and Cherry were ever in the wrong units, per se, the twin concept with them is still apparent, and I do think that holds some significance. One of the big factors for this idea is color theory, which I do believe plays a big role in the LOONAverse since each girl has their own color, and some of them even have subcolors factoring in the white, black, and gray spectrum. This is, yet again, another concept that doesn't get fleshed out as much after Jaden's departure, so we'll leave it be for now.
So back to the timeline of events. The structure of OEC's story is actually pretty straightforwardly shown to us. The three solos serve as a trilogy introducing each of the members, with the indication that they all either happen at the same time, or more likely in close succession with each other. Based on the reveal teaser and info divulged during the study group events, Kimlip and Jinsol had already awakened their odd eyes and were working in tandem to find Cherry, since the latter plants the first cherry for her and the former is waiting to draw her out into the field of mirrors. Girlfront is the finale to their arc, as it ends with the three girls gathering together, and Sweet Crazy Love is explicitly described as a prequel, showing us the origin of what happened before the three fully developed their odd eyes. This is even further supported by the cinema theory clip Vivi's Letter to Hong Kong, which is framed as a vlog/video message Vivi is filming for her parents in Hong Kong, only to end with her seeing Jinsol at an aquarium and leading right into the Sweet Crazy Love MV. So, Letter to Hong Kong must have occurred either immediately before or after Sonatine, since we don't see Yojin in it, and it's more framed as just the 1/3 members rehearsing and then Vivi and Hassel hanging out. Since Sonatine is essentially the finale to 1/3's arc, and Rain 51dB is framed more like a 90s inspired music video, I'm going to lean towards it occurring after. And then, we get one more clip that serves as an epilogue to OEC's story, the Starlight clip, where, after saying goodbye to the other girls, Cherry is seen in a tunnel, alone, and then, the next member of LOONA comes and finds her. Eve.
If Odd Eye Circle was the unit that hooked people into the group, then YYY was the one that hooked people deeper into the story, as it is the most prominent and most consistent out of the three pre-debut subunits. There's still pretty vague imagery and symbolism throughout, but YYY introduces a motif that many people will at least be somewhat familiar with. The story of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, and the act of original sin. YYY takes this concept and adds a new twist to it. Rather than being tempted by the devil to eat the forbidden fruit, the members of YYY actively choose to reject Eden, which has been recontextualized as a utopian society that values perfection and conformity over free will and self-expression.
Because of the premise being generally easy to grasp, the message of the story reaches a wide range of fans who interpret everything in several different ways. Similarly to Hassel, some fans attributed Eve's lyrics to Anew as a trans allegory, and both her solo and Chuu's Heart Attack are widely accepted by LGBTQ fans for portraying sapphic themes. Even though the members clarified that that wasn't the intent when they were filming it, they accepted the interpretation and were happy that fans could view it in such a light. YYY also establishes each member having a close link with one of the members to LOONA 1/3. Eve and Vivi, Chuu and Hassel, Gohan and Hyunjin, and Haeju and Heejin. Yojin is excluded since she's being treated as a solo unit here, but I do remember a cute theory that Eve is Yojin's frog prince. That was done by the YouTuber Fairy Pinch. Go check them out, it's actually a really fun theory. And OEC have some links as well, with Cherry being given an apple by Eve and then passing it on to Gohan, Jinsol interacting with Haeju and Egoist, and while never shown, Kimlip had a feature in Chuu and Gohan's duet Seesaw. And by feature, I mean she only sang a single line.
It's been a long, long day. 오늘따라 커피 너무 많이 마신 걸까?
Okay.
In terms of the timeline, everything regarding YYY's arc is fairly linear, going chronologically through each member's individual journey as they reach the decision to leave Eden. Love Forever essentially serves as a condensed version of what happened, with Egoist arguably being last to occur and happening after it. Then the clip 1 is essentially an epilogue where we finally see Haeju take a bite of the apple. The one video actually lends itself to another theory that's popular with older fans, but isn't discussed as much anymore. The theory that the YYY members are all one person. I've dabbled with this idea a bit in my own theories and writing, but to sum up my current thoughts on it, no, I don't think the YYY girls are literally one person who got split off into 4 people. I do think that the 4 of them are deeply connected in the way that they went through a similar journey of rejecting Eden and finding their true selves, but I don't think we're supposed to think of the four of them as a single entity. One also introduces a concept for YYXY that we'll discuss a bit more in the final section. All in all, the events that's set up for YYXY is very straightforward. Except it turns out YYXY threw us the biggest curveball, because every interaction we see the YYXY members have with their one-third counterparts are spread out across the entire timeline up to this point.
So, starting with Yves, she meets Vivi at a roller skating rink / bowling alley and skates with her in a similar fashion to when Vivi dreamt of skating with the boy in her human memories. So, does that mean what we're seeing is the true events of the past, where Yves met Vivi before she became an android? Or is this still the present day, and Yves is meeting Vivi with her human emotions restored and making her dream a reality? Is this on Earth or in Eden? And what does this mean for Vivi's origins, as people began to speculate on it after this scene happened? Then, Chuu makes things even trickier as she's woken up by Hassel, who is wearing her outfit from the carol while the song plays in the distance. Meaning, Chuu either came to Earth during the exact time Hassel was waiting for Heejin and Hyunjin in the carol, or this is still a later point in time and Hassel and Chuu's solos are a year apart, but this still releases in December near Christmas time. Did Hassel and the others just decide to make it a tradition to go out shopping and hang out during the holidays? Is that why we see Vivi, Cherry, and Yves hanging out together in their own rendition of the song? And then there's Go-On, who is revealed in the Cinema Theory clip of her duet with Chuu Seesaw to have made the bracelet that Hyunjin receives in Around You. What does this mean? If Hyunjin and Go-On's stories start at two opposite ends of the timeline, how did Go-On manage to send this bracelet to Hyunjin, who at the start of the story hadn't even met Heejin yet? And what's even more confusing, if you go and check the set list for the Cinema Theory event, they play the Seesaw clip before Go-On's solo. Why? Go-On is blonde here, and she only became blonde after she ate her pineapple. Unless that was all just a dream, and Go-On didn't actually magically change her hair color with a fruit. But still, why show one and only after Seesaw? Does Go-On already know about Earth at this point if Yves and Chuu told her about it based on the scene in Love Forever? Even if she did, why would that compel her to give the bracelet to a cat, which sends it to Hyunjin somehow? Oh, it just makes it even more confusing, oh my god.
The only reason I can think of for this is that Go-On simply didn't know that the cat would be a messenger. Maybe she thought that the cat was just a normal stray and wanted to give it a bracelet in case she ever saw it again.
Go-On is by far one of the most mysterious characters in the lore, as there's something about her that comes off as if she knows more than she's letting on. Like something inside her is guiding her silently as she slowly grows from someone scared and timid to a more confident individual. But, you know.
See, this is why I'm so grateful that Loossemble exists now, but that's a topic for later.
Now, Haeju. Oh, Haeju. Where to begin? Perhaps because of her extremely pivotal status as the final girl of LOONA, that Haeju's solo MV has some of the most recognizable imagery in the lore, from scenes of her holding herself to the glowing red eyes and the quick flashes of blood and fire burning other recognizable symbols like the cassette tape or the Eden School uniform, but has also been associated with one of the LOONAverse's most controversial theories, the Haeju murdering Vivi theory. While nowadays this theory has been disproven as fans have debunked the misconception of a scene depicting an unknown animal's eye is actually a wolf and not a deer, And so not as many people subscribe to that theory anymore. Its prominence in the early years of LOONA and lore analysis have made it one of the most well-known theories in most orbit circles. Aside from Haeju, Yves and Jinsol have also been attributed the role of villains in the lore, as they both have connections to Vivi and Haeju, and even to this day, the idea of Vivi getting murdered is a concept that some fans still entertain, whether that be as an ironic meme or an admittedly really good piece of fan art. Seriously, this one is gorgeous.
Despite this, there are still cracks in this theory. A recent video from a YouTuber, Floristel, pointed out how, despite wolves being predators and deer being prey, wolves can actually have a hard time killing deer because of their size difference and if a deer has antlers. And Vivi's deer is always depicted as having antlers. Plus, part of LOONA's whole identity as a group is about unity, acceptance, and friendship. So, having one of your members being outright antagonistic to everyone else, or even straight up killing another member, doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things. Yes, a lot of people portray Jinsol as being morally gray, but really the only reason why she comes off that way is because she's emulating the standoffish, aloof nature akin to her blue betta fish, which are territorial and has to be kept alone from other fish. And yes, people portray Yves as being antagonistic towards Haeju and even being pushy or cold towards Chuu and Gohan in her efforts to leave Eden, but I personally attribute that more to her excitement at the prospect of leaving and her naivete or lack of knowledge about Earth, leading her to act more impulsively without considering her friends' feelings. Because she assumes that everyone would be so much happier if they just knew about the life that could be waiting for them outside of Eden's oppressive ways.
Chuu really only comes around to it because she's so obsessed with Yves and wanted to be with her, but I think part of the original plan for Chuu's character arc was to see her grow and mature beyond just her attachments to Yves and Gohan specifically, and starts a journey of finding her own identity as an individual. And for Gohan, even though she eventually agrees to go with Yves and Chuu, her looking back at Haeju alone clearly indicates that she still has some hesitation or regrets for leaving her behind. Had things gone differently and Yves was a bit more patient in letting the girls learn to let go of everything they had been taught in Eden at their own pace, the ending of Love Forever could have been completely different and shown all four of them leaving together with no regrets. Ultimately, this does get resolved as Haeju does start to realize her anger is more directed towards Eden and not the rest of her unit members, and she starts to love and accept the parts of herself she couldn't express before in Eden, burning away everything that represented her old self to be reborn and be true to herself from now on. So, now the stage is set, the players are assembled, let's talk about how— What? No, I'm not talking about that. It doesn't have anything to do with— No, there's no way I'm talking about— Seriously? Fine. Let's talk about Woomanna.
Okay, so let me start off by stating that I actually don't hate this web drama like some people do. No, it's not a masterpiece or hidden gem by any means. No, the story isn't perfect. And yes, the acting can be a bit awkward in some scenes.
그만하라고! 그만하라고! 그만하라고 했잖아!
But as someone who not only recently hyperfixated on LOONA as a group, but also coming from my history with J-pop idols and the variety of acting jobs I've seen J-idols do, as well as my personal history of doing theater in high school and college, my mindset was likely very different from most people when going into this. While I can't say I'm an expert on professional theater or what constitutes a Broadway-worthy performance, or whatever the equivalent that is to Korea, I've always viewed acting as a growing opportunity. You quite literally have to put yourself in the mindset of someone or something completely different from you and try your best to convey that in whatever way works best for you. You could have 5 different actors portraying the same role and get something different from every single one of them, because they will be taking something different from the character and convey that in a way that only they can. And speaking from experience here, it can be rough, especially if you're just starting out with little to no experience with acting. So even if I am critical when a performance is awkward or lacking in some areas, I do empathize with these girls on some level. I've never done film acting before, but I can imagine what they probably felt when filming this wasn't too dissimilar from my first experience performing on stage. Now, as to whether or not this drama has any tie-in to the LOONAverse is another story.
Woomanna, or full title Do You Remember When We First Met, or alternatively called First Love Story, is a 3-season-long web series that starred the members of LOONA 1/3, including Yojin and Odd Eye Circle. YYY never appeared in the show and it never got renewed after season 3. If you want to see at least Chuu acting in an actually good college romance drama, go watch Dating Class. Giri from Promise 9 is also in it, it's really good. If you want to see the other YYY members acting alongside LOONA, even if it's not OT12, go look up the Naver Now radio dramas that they did during So What era. Or just go watch Go-On and Heju reenact a scene from season 3 as punishment for losing Mafia Dance.
체리요. 체리. 슈퍼스타 체리.
Hyunjin's solo Around You got a special music video that used clips from the drama, as the lyrics of the song correlate to her character's personality and feelings toward one of the 2 male leads, Hansel. But other than that, and some vague allusions to the girls' outward personas, their relationships with each other, and some imagery that could loosely connect to LOONA's concept, there really isn't a ton to suggest that Woomanna is in any way canon to the LOONAverse. Hansel and Yojin may be blood relatives here, but the whole point is that they had a close sisterly relationship despite not being related by blood. Vivi isn't an android, none of the OEC girls have powers, and heck, season 3 had the same guy acting as Kim Lip's love interest, who was also the boy that Vivi crushes on in her solo MV. His name is Love and he's part of the group Only One Of, which Jaden also worked with. But there's no greater implication than just, oh yeah, that's the same guy, isn't it? So, no, I do not agree with the statement that Woomanna is lore. The most they did was have vague references to LOONA, but for the most part, the series can be treated as its own separate entity with no correlation to a grander storyline. Okay, now we can finally talk about Hi Hi and Butterfly. After the buildup of being introduced to 12 girls and each of the 3 subunits, their roles and concepts, the world of the LOONAverse, it all culminates in Hi Hi, the first gathering of LOONA. Well, technically Favorite was the first OT12 video we got, but that serves more as a performance showcase for the group rather than having any big lore implications. There was that weird random shot of Cherry's hand upside down though. Huh.
Hi Hi is essentially the finale to the first season, quote-unquote, of the LOONAverse. There's a definitive end to an arc here, as it shows the members finally gathering together, but still remains open-ended enough to get people guessing on where the story will go next. there's still plenty of potential story arcs for them to explore, such as the connection between Hyunjin and Cherry, Vivi's regained humanity, and the YYXY girls exploring and experiencing life on Earth. The ending shot of Heejin starting to float into the sky encapsulated this feeling perfectly. We finally see the 12 girls taking their first steps towards their goal, and they're sprinting towards it with all of their might.
Okay, so before we talk about the butterfly teasers, remember what I said about one introducing a special concept for YYXY? Well, similarly to how they each had their own assigned fruits, there was one additional trait that the video gave for the 4 YYXY girls. Emotions that represented the core of their journey. Yves is faith. Faith in herself and her inner confidence in what she believed in. Chuu is love. The love that she felt for Yves and the love for herself she begins to foster by leaving Eden. Go-on is hope. Hope for herself that she can change and do something good for the world. And Haeju is anger. Anger towards Eden and their oppressive ways. Just from what we can see in their individual solo MVs, all of this makes sense. But the problem comes when you read the paragraph on YYXY in the album description for the Multiple album. Born in Eden, the utopian land, YYXY chooses to embrace the forbidden and leaves to find their own selves. Yves, the leader of YYXY, had faith in being born again with the song Anew. Chuu keeps her hopes up with her yearning towards Yves. Go-on loves her unique self. Olivia Hay shows anger towards the taboos of Eden. When all of their emotions gather, a neo-anthropan genes of YYXY manifest. Wait, what?
Why are Chuu and Go-on's emotions switched? I mean, it's not as drastic as giving either one of them anger, since they don't really express that in their MVs. Chuu's more frustrated and sad that Yves won't pay attention to her, and Go-on is more scared of the other girls chasing her. Chuu hoping for Yves' attention and Go-on's love for herself still fits in as much as the inverse. It's just a little confusing? Like, I generally don't know if this is just BlackBerry not caring enough to fix this error, or if the concept of Chuu and Go-on sharing the emotions of love and hope and them being interchangeable with each other was part of the original plan.
Alright, so now that Hi basically served as the end to the first chapter of LOONA's story, the culmination of the girls' journeys in finding each other and forming the full group, where do we go from here? Oh. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, folks, it's time for the big one. Butterfly era. Not only was this comeback the era that defined LOONA's core concept of female empowerment, the song Butterfly essentially becoming their group anthem, the lore also took the first major turn here. The more fantastical elements were always present with them, but aside from some of the more creepy undertones of certain videos, they never fully delved into a dark concept before.
This is distinctly different and darker than what we just saw in Hi. But what does it all mean?
The very first teaser, XX, is basically the Hi teaser inverted. Instead of showing the members gearing up to run, it shows reversed footage of the members running together, and the intro to the song is being played in reverse. Basically, everyone who saw this ran with the notion that this meant all of their progress that culminated in Hi got erased, and the girls are stuck in a time loop. But similarly to the theory that one is showing us that YYXY are basically one person / being, I don't think that LOONA are literally trapped in a time loop. Now yes, in the past with my old theories and my own fanfic series, I did run with this concept, but my stance on this has changed, and now I believe that this entire time loop theory is just, well, Orbit's overthinking things. Again, I told you it was a bad habit.
From the very start, Heejin Solo's lyrics establish the idea that she's stuck in a monotonous lifestyle, where every day feels the same. But while the other members may talk about the passing of time and whatever ongoing struggles or feelings they may be experiencing from day to day, none of the other tracks in LOONA's discography really allude to this idea that they're all trapped in an infinite time loop. This idea also contradicts the concept of the Mobius strip associated with LOONA. For those who don't know, it's a twisted band that only has one side and one boundary. Since Odd Eye Circle, the girls have mentioned that it would be a key concept for LOONA going forward, and that the members mix and match words together to strengthen the loop. I think the Mobius strip also highlights LOONA's overall concept of unity. So to suddenly contradict these symbols and statements by stating that the members are trapped in a time loop and need to break the Mobius loop just doesn't seem right. The Mobius strip to me also seems to represent the concept of infinity and inevitability. The words fate, coincidence, and destiny start getting brought up a lot more after OT12's full debut. So it's almost like they're saying that LOONA's journey up to this point, where they meet each other and eventually gather to become a whole group, was an inevitability that was always meant to happen.
Let's discuss the YYXY members' teasers for this comeback a little bit more. The 4 members each end up in a different location they previously filmed at during pre-debut, specifically locations correlated to the 1/3 members. Yves and Chuu are in Hong Kong together, Vivi's location and home country, Hyeju wakes up in France, which is Heejin's location, and Gohan is in Iceland, at a black sand beach, and the crashed plane site where Hassel was. Seriously, what is this? While the others' locations make sense and don't have a ton of crazy twists, mainly focusing on the cool visuals of Yves and Chuu dancing in the streets of Hong Kong and Hyeju emerging from the tunnel and tearing off her choker, Gohan has some of the craziest implications for the lore and what her role could ultimately be. Because in this teaser, it's implied that Gohan somehow might have went back in time, might have been chasing after Hassel in the yellow truck, might have died, or her spirit/doppelganger left her body temporarily, and might have altered the timeline of events in Hassel's storyline. I say might in regards to this entire setup because, say it with me now, we never get a resolution to this.
So, not only does this throw into question how much of this affects Hassel's storyline, but it's also clearly establishing Gohan to have a special role in the story. And it makes sense to set that up here in a comeback literally titled Butterfly, with the girl represented by a butterfly. And, you know, butterfly effect. And again, regardless of whether you think that Gohan represents hope or love, it still makes sense either way. If Gohan is meant to represent hope and or love, then her coming to this place and giving hope and or love to someone, and that saves Hassel in some way if her confrontation with Birdsell is meant to be taken in a negative light, is still something profoundly beautiful and furthers the concept of LOONA's unity and loyalty to each other. Given everything that happened in present day, this definitely holds a new context.
Butterfly also establishes a concept which becomes integral to LOONA's message of empowerment and unity: the LOONAs around the world. Women from all walks of life in different locations around the world, and how they each exemplify LOONA's message. It really is no wonder that this song resonated with so many people, and there isn't even a ton of crazy lore developments outside of the teasers. It's just LOONA showcasing their performance skills and also highlighting the women around the world who LOONA want to inspire with their music. I know basically next to nothing regarding Only One Of, but I am a casual fan of Triple S, so while I don't know the extent of their lore, I wouldn't be surprised if there were certain concepts or ideas he used with Triple S that maybe were repurposed from ideas that he wanted to explore with LOONA that he couldn't. I mean, it's natural for an artist to have recurring motifs and themes across several of their works, right? Overall, this first era of LOONA's storyline is one I can only describe as enigmatic. There's a lot of mystique around it, and not everything is given a clear answer. Part of that is purposeful, but another part of that, unfortunately, is due to the fact that several concepts that could have potentially been fleshed out were never given the time to do so. And because there's so much we still don't know about the extent to how the story was meant to be carried out, we don't even fully know how much of it was purposeful or not. It's clear that Jhun had a lot of thought put into what he wanted LOONA to be like conceptually, and I can't imagine how it must have felt for him to see his vision not living up to what it could have been due to budgetary or time restraints or just plain executive meddling from you know who. But now that Jhun is gone and LOONA enters a lengthy year-long hiatus period, where in the LOONAverse do we go from here? After Butterfly Era concluded with another ominous teaser, the announcement of a delayed but probably never gonna happen ballad album, a world-shaking appearance at KCON LA, fans being left in limbo for months as to the group's future, and a fan-dedicated song with a music video that has supposedly only been shown once at a fan live event and will never see the light of day again. The end of 2019 capped off the newest era of LOONA by ending the aforementioned fan live event with the first new teaser for what many called the Burn Era, now officially known as Hash Era. Heejin, dressed in her butterfly attire, floating high in the sky as a piano note rings out in the distance. This marks the start of the next chapter in the LOONAverse's storyline, which I'm going to refer to as the mainstream era of LOONA, as this was allegedly the primary reason for Jhun and BBC's falling out.
Supposedly, Jhun and Blockberry were in creative disagreements for the storyline going forward, as the company wanted to focus less on the lore and make LOONA more mainstream to secure their success and longevity in the industry. And while I could definitely see this as a reasonable business decision, knowing what we know about Blockberry now, it wouldn't surprise me if this decision was also their underhanded way of pushing back Jhun's influence as creative director to lessen the expenses they had to make as a company for LOONA. And since Jhun was too stubborn to let up on his creative vision, they let him go and turned him into a social pariah for Orbits to save their own skin. Their way of going, oh yeah, this guy was being totally unreasonable, but we want LOONA to actually succeed and gain more recognition. More recognition means more money. More money means we'll be out of debt and LOONA will get to make more music. And that's what Orbits want, isn't it? That is just peak gaslighting behavior if I've ever seen it. Now again, this is purely speculation on my part as a latecomer to the fandom after the fallout went down. And I don't have any intimate knowledge on how business works in the entertainment industry, let alone K-pop. But from what knowledge I do have, this sort of thing, executive meddling and greedy higher-ups in the industry screwing over their own employees when it stops benefiting them, happens all the time. But at the same time, Blockberry couldn't fully let go of the lore, since this was also one of the major drawing points for a bulk of the fandom and why they became fans. So what do? They keep up the illusion that the lore is still being actively developed, using only vague and familiar symbols that dedicated theorists have grown accustomed to analyzing, all the while baiting newcomers with the prospect of new developments that are just vague and open-ended enough to keep people from getting suspicious. This obviously didn't stop some people from declaring that the lore was dead and there was no longer a proper storyline to LOONA. And while I would personally disagree with that, looking back on it now, I think the more accurate term for the lore state in this era is that rather than an immediate definitive death, quote-unquote, the LOONAverse experienced a slow, painful extinguishing of what it used to be from back in pre-debut up to Butterfly. So, where do we begin? 2020 was a turbulent year for everyone, but it also marked the start of what I'd like to call LOONA's Girl Crush Trilogy, 3 releases that all spearheaded a hard girl crush concept. Rather than mixing up concepts in between releases, like how the pre-debut unit releases were structured, these 3 pretty much stuck closely to the powerful girl crush concepts featuring hard-hitting choreo, various styles of EDM, and apocalyptic imagery.
While Hustle couldn't participate in the first 2 releases due to her hiatus, LOONA's storyline seemingly continued off from where the ominous Hash teaser had left off, focusing on the idea of the girls burning themselves and basically kickstarting a worldwide cataclysm. The grungy outfits and streetwear, the image of Heju with the torch setting everything ablaze, the burning feather to signify Hustle's role in the story, and the freaking meteors falling from the sky as the moon burned. This was nothing like the overwhelmingly positive energy of Hi Hi or the elegant beauty of Butterfly. This was loud, harsh, and powerful indeed. Powerful enough to secure LOONA's first ever music show win. This continues on into Why Not, where we see what appears to be the aftermath of the apocalyptic storm. All of the girls are separated, some of them split off into different groups or scouring the empty streets or barren wastelands alone. Unlike So What, which regularly showed the girls as a full group performing in a few locations, there's barely any sign of LOONA as a group in Why Not, save for a few brief scenes of them throwing colored powder at each other and dancing around a campfire on the moon?
Okay, yeah, that's a cool visual. I really like that. That's a cool scene.
Interspersed through all of the chaos, we get recurring familiar imagery. Jinsol flashes her odd eye. Heju stands with a group of girls who get glowing red eyes. Kim Lip is surrounded by 3 glowing orbs, which by the end turn to 12 as they hover above a purple field. And everything is both simultaneously attention-grabbing and disorienting. From the quick cuts and flashes of lightning or fireworks to the changing camera angle and aspect ratios.
Everything in Why Not is designed to keep the viewer guessing, hold them by the edge of their seat, and keep them on the roller coaster ride of a music video until the last second. What made this even more apparent was how an alternate version was found on the site KoreaNet. Some changes were subtle, certain CG effects weren't present yet, and a few shots were either rearranged or cut altogether. But most noticeable of all, the ending to the music video for the final bridge is completely different, with longer scenes and some shots that never made it to the final cut.
This comeback era also saw more mainstream success in the US come LOONA's way, as their English B-side Star got a special MV and was broadcasted on several US radio stations. Coming in between the second and final releases of the Girl Crush trilogy, it serves as a nice change of pace from all the chaos and apocalyptic stuff happening in the lore.
There's honestly not a ton of crazy revelations made here. There's a lot more focus on the performance and the aesthetics of the video. The set pieces are all varied and uniquely add to the dreamy feel of the song and video. There's definitely some shots that make you ponder a bit, like, hey, why is Lip sitting in front of a spinning wheel? Is this a Sleeping Beauty reference? But other than that, it's honestly a good gateway video for newer fans, especially international fans. Yes, it's not OT12, but Star is still a nice song to listen to and could serve as a good enough introduction to who LOONA are.
The year ends with a new teaser, New Moon, which showcases more scenes from the Why Not MV, specifically highlighting the connections between the 1/3 and YYYY members, and teasing the return of Hustle at the very end. And when she did return for the following release, things got batshit insane. Why is the Earth orbiting the moon? Wait, what? The eclipse callbacks? Oh my god, what is happening? Are we in God mode right now? Paint the Town, in regards to the LOONAverse, had a lot of expectations to live up to. Not only did this mark the return of Hustle, but with the past year seeing a ton more domestic success from the group, fans were anxious to see how they would follow up on the storyline.
And just like Why Not, everything they threw at us kept people on their toes and coming back for more. So much so that the music video surpassed Butterfly as LOONA's most watched music video, currently at somewhere over 72 million views. Despite promotions being tragically cut short after a staff member contracted COVID, PTT proved the potential to be OT12's most successful era yet, had things kept going.
Paint the Town is the climax to the apocalyptic trilogy of music videos, filled to the brim with symbolism old and new. Callback after callback, from Kimlip's Eclipse, OEC's Odd Eyes, to Yves and Heejin's old pre-debut outfits dressed on mannequins. The girls switch between various different dance outfits and elegant wardrobes and jewelry, making them look almost divine and surround them in flora, fire, and eventually an army backing them. Everything about this feels epic, meant to hype up the viewers with some climactic confrontation, a turning point in the story. By the time we reach the final scene of Jinsol standing in Kimlip's place on the platform, we're practically left breathless by just how overwhelming it all was, and left with millions of questions. Why did OEC's Odd Eyes change? What was Kimlip doing with a freaking black hole? Who were the girls fighting? And who is the hero that comes into the world by LOONA mentioned in the album's description? All of these questions and more never get answered.
Yeah! We had an entire trilogy setting up what appears to be the end of the world as we know it and the LOONAverse fundamentally changing, and we never get a follow-up to it. We don't see an epic battle, we don't see the aftermath to any of this, we don't get a resolution. For comparison, let's look at my other alt K-pop group, Dreamcatcher.
Now, Dreamcatcher's lore is set up a little bit differently compared to LOONA, in that rather than being an outwardly continuous storyline, Dreamcatcher sets up self-contained storylines in something like an anthology. The Nightmare series, the Dystopia trilogy, the Apocalypse trilogy, and now the Versus Villains two-parter. Even one-shots like their summer comeback Because, and Deja Vu and Rose Blue, which served as game collaborations. While they have a few recurring symbols or themes, everything is set up in a way where not everything has to be connected and the continuity still flows naturally. In their Dystopia trilogy, it makes sense that it jumps from a gothic medieval setting to an urban setting to a cyberpunk setting, because the theme of the album is the power of language and how words can hurt people. In their Apocalypse trilogy, we see the progression of a world destroyed by war and pollution, Dreamcatcher coming in to change things and start a revolution, and we actually see them fight people, and it's awesome! And the world starting to heal by the end.
Had the Girl Crush trilogy of LOONA gone a similar route to this, I think the story could have been handled better. The blueprint is there for a basic 3-act structure. So What is the apocalypse starting, Why Not is the immediate aftermath, and Paint the Town is then gearing up for a big battle, but we never get to see what happens after that.
Even though we get choreography scenes with the backup dancers pointing spears at the girls, we don't see them fight anyone. Imagine if instead of some of the dance scenes, we got scenes of the girls fighting against this army, eventually rallying them to their side to face the new world. That could have made for a far more satisfying ending, even if they kept the final cliffhanger.
But nope! Instead, we get the K-pop equivalent of skipping a couple episodes of a season arc, starting from where the main characters are setting up for a battle, and ending at the season finale where everyone is happy and everything is fine. But we'll talk more about that ending part in a second, because first...
Starseed.
Okay, let me get this out of the way first. Despite how I feel about some of the stuff he has worked on, I do not like this man as a person. I won't go into detail about it, but let's just say he made some very inappropriate comments about certain younger female idol groups, including YYXY. Just no. However, I must separate my feelings for the man and the art, because I cannot deny it. The and intro is badass, Paint the Town was good, WoW is super fun, I love Be Honest, Not Friends is a freaking trip, and Hula Hoop is amazing. So, Not Friends was one of the 2 side unit projects LOONA did towards the end of 2021 alongside... Yeah, that.
Not Friends was the second, and ultimately it seems final, part of a project Ryan was working on at the time. I don't know anything about the first part that he did with the NCTU members, so don't ask me about it. And it was explicitly stated to take inspiration from the lore while taking a new spin on it, unlike with... Yeah, that. Now, this is what I wanted to see after Paint the Town. The girls beating people up with guns and shit. The girls take on specific roles, and everything feels like an episode of a crime drama. Although the description states that the girls are in pursuit of some mysterious object, we never actually see what this object is. And we get another cliffhanger ending that doesn't amount to anything, unfortunately. And then we get to the Japanese releases, starting with Hula Hoop. And honestly, with this serving as both an introduction to LOONA for Japanese fans and a milestone release for the group, it's pretty perfect. By this point, the LOONA project had begun in 2016, 5 years prior to this coming out. So seeing all the callbacks, the girls wearing their old outfits and recreating scenes from their pre-debut MVs, it's really heartwarming for longtime fans who followed them up to this point. On top of that, Starseed was given a CD/DVD exclusive animated music video, the first of its kind for LOONA, and focused more on the story of a little girl in a fantasy world getting inspired by the story of LOONA and spreading that joy to others. Does this add a ton to the overarching lore? No, but I don't think it needs to. It can just be its own thing, a cute little side story inspired by LOONA and their concept, and I like it. And then there's Luminous. So, we all agree that this is just Butterfly but Girl Crush, right? And not as good? Right. Okay.
So, real talk, I actually don't hate this as a concept. I do like the LOONAs around the world concept, or I guess in this case, the LOONAs around the world, specifically in Japan. Heck, the fact that they highlight different age groups, different body types, and one of them is a paraplegic dancer, that's just cool. That's cool. The B-side Sick Love, sung by OEC plus Heejin, is honestly pretty catchy, though maybe I'm just biased since OEC is my fave unit, and this was the first OEC-related thing we got in years before they even re-debuted in Mod House. But aside from that, on top of the comeback already being dampened by the Disaster Tour and Chuu not participating in this single since she was kicked out shortly after, this doesn't add much to the lore either. And so, we reach the finale of the second era of the LOONAverse, with...
There's a reason why I consider this the finale to this arc of LOONA and their storyline, and not... Yeah, that. This was the last major Korean comeback for OT12 LOONA, the final chapter of the LOONAverse storyline before the ensuing fallout between the group and Blockberry. And it truly does feel like an epilogue of sorts. Everyone is happy, everything is peaceful and beautiful and full of life again. The comparison made to Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream is brought out in the visuals of LOONA exploring fantastical landscapes of a magical train, a field full of colorful flowers, candy, and dreamy lighting. It starts and ends with Chuu and the lollipop, which is picked up by Jhun in the end. And after a brief moment set in this space, it just ends. Everything flipped, and we start the journey through the free.
Honestly, kind of ironic to think of how this whole era was all about Blockberry having LOONA bolster about how they were bad and unapologetically expressing themselves and how free they were. All the while, they had been manipulating everyone from the start and ultimately got screwed over. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this second era of the lore. It's ironic, but also kind of frustrating. You could probably tell just from how I've been discussing things in this section compared to the previous one, that I've been glossing over a lot. And it's not just because I'm trying to keep the lore discussions at a base level and not spiral into analyzing every single milliframe of their videos.
It's because, to be honest, there isn't a whole lot to go in depth to with this particular era. Everything we're being shown is at a surface level of the girls are acting badass, or the world is ending, or we're happy and free, without giving any greater depth to what that means beyond the broadest strokes of LOONA's messages of female empowerment. And this also meant it was harder for people to actually engage with the lore the way they had previously done, because in their minds, it just felt like they were running in circles. And I honestly can't blame them for thinking that. The way that Orbits interacted with and engaged with the lore had changed ever since the return from hiatus following Butterfly. Because Jaden's departure threw into question how much we should take as canon going forward, people either fell off of the lore thinking there was nothing new to be gained, or were desperately trying to connect pieces following a trail of crumbs left by a company who very likely didn't care about satiating those curiosities.
Since I came in not knowing any better and took everything at face value, analyzing every possible clue that was thrown my way, while also simultaneously writing a fanfiction that was actively being updated and changed as new music videos were being released, my feelings for this era and the lore are a bit messy. I'm always gonna have a soft spot for these songs and what they bring to the storyline, even if the Girl Crush trilogy is just surface-level girl crush female empowerment anthems. But it still left an impact on a lot of people. It helped LOONA gain that mainstream success, even if that success got soured in the end. There's a reason why people got so heated when they saw other groups trying to do similar concepts to LOONA and either failing to live up to those same heights, as how YYXY's Vampara comeback showed, or felt like it was just wholesale copying from them, as with the controversy with NMIXX early on when people saw comparisons to Why Not. I chalk this more up to people just chasing trends, as not only girl crush concepts but also space concepts were incredibly popular during this time, and LOONA was also pushing the market for groups to try and create expansive fictional universes and storylines, but without actually putting as much time and care into making things cohesive.
I think Pixie is an unfortunate example of this, as I loved their fairy forest concept early on, but whether it be due to limited resources or behind-the-scenes conflicts we're still not privy to, the lore fell off unexpectedly quickly, and Pixie's activities have crawled to a staggering low. God, those girls deserve so much better. By the end of 2022, everything was starting to change for LOONA. After Chuu's forceful expulsion from the group, the LOONA members began to file injunctions on their exclusive contracts and sued Blockberry. The fandom enacted a worldwide boycott to stand in solidarity with the girls, and despite it all, Blockberry still tried to push a comeback with Oh, the Origins album, a blatant attempt to bait fans after everything hit the fan. This obviously did not work, and the album was delayed indefinitely, as one by one, the girls left the company. And while not every problem has been fully resolved yet, they're in a much better place now than they were before.
So little time has passed since it happened, but they are all forgetting she even existed. As I thought, she caused no revolution to occur. Now that she's gone, she's just one more sad failure to be pitied. I've restarted the rules of the Rose Crest. I'll be counting on you, Anthe.
You really don't know what's happened, do you?
Huh?
It doesn't matter. By all means, stay in this cozy coffin of yours and continue to play the prince. But I have to go now.
Go? Where? Go where?
She isn't gone at all. She's merely vanished from your world.
What are you talking about? Wait! Anthe! Anthe!
Goodbye. This time it's my turn to go. No matter where you are, I swear I'll find you. Wait for me, UTENA.
And so we have reached the current phase of our LOONA cinematic universe journey. While the previous two eras of the storyline were unpredictable in their own right by virtue of everything being kept secret, you could still see a general direction being formed in Era 1. Meanwhile, it's still unclear to us how much of Era 2 was Blockberry just winging it and how much of it was actually planned out. Era 3, however, is completely unpredictable, with the added wrinkle that not all of the members are together in one group at the moment. And no, LOONA has not disbanded, and the girls not only still acknowledge themselves as LOONA members, but they all hope to get back together in the future. There's still a lot of internal problems that need to be resolved before that can happen, but fans still have reason to be hopeful for OT12's return. As I'm recording this, Yves is currently prepping to release her first EP, ARTMS' first full-length album is coming out, and Chuu has recently announced her comeback and was seen filming in Melbourne. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. And in regards to the overarching storyline and lore, I'm not going to try and place the events of each respective group's storylines into the greater LOONAverse. Mainly just because I don't want to overcomplicate things by trying to determine when certain events happen. For the sake of simplicity, let's all just assume that these events are happening after Flip That. Kinda like an in-universe time skip. And yes, I am still accounting for Era 2 rather than going from Butterfly, since I don't want to fully disregard that altogether. You can argue how canon it is to Jaden's vision, but to me, it's still a crucial part of LOONA's fictional universe because it's just as important to their history as a group as well. Starting off with Chuu, we have her first solo mini-album, Howl. This release is interesting as rather than surrounding any sort of character Chuu had in the lore or her outward idol persona, this feels a lot more personal. Like, this story is more focused on the inner emotions of Kim Ji-woo the person rather than Chuu the idol singer. There's definitely still some fantastical elements in Howl with the two little heroes, her alter egos, and there might be some references to her role in the lore with Hitchhiker, focused on Chuu exploring Earth after crash landing there, as it states in the lyrics, which could arguably reflect how she felt when she first came from Eden. But the focus feels a lot more grounded, centering around Chuu and how she views the world around her.
Underwater starts as the prologue for this, focusing on two different Chuus in two different scenarios, one on the beach and one in her apartment. The two seem to be connected in some way, as if they can feel each other's presence but never see one another. I personally interpret the beach Chuu as Chuu's inner self, the side of her that calls her to explore, to seek, to heal. The Chuu in her apartment is the real Chuu, the one we usually see now shown behind closed doors. This Chuu is fidgeting with her phone, eating food, scrapbooking, listening to music. Meanwhile, the inner Chuu, the Chuu on the beach, is basking in the sunlight and swimming in the water. The way the sound of water comes in during the bridge as one Chuu is listening peacefully to the music, while the other Chuu is immersed in the water itself, that epitomizes what this song and video feels like for me. The start of Chuu's inner healing. Hal takes things a step even further, showing a version of Chuu in her most vulnerable state, curled up in a dark room and alone with just her thoughts as tears fill her eyes. I legit had chills when I first saw this Chuu singing the opening lines of Howl, and in this lighting, her big cuddly alter ego looks even more terrifying, as if Chuu's mental state changes the way she sees her inner self. Where Underwater mainly focused on two versions of Chuu, as if she's imagining herself exploring the beach rather than actually going there, this time we see Chuu actually leaving the room she was in and exploring the world. She buys herself flowers, she tries new food, she goes on a water ride. She's still a little anxious as she puts her headphones on once she's outside, but she's slowly growing more comfortable the longer she spends outside. When she finds the second little hero, it's smaller compared to the one we just saw earlier, possibly younger, maybe a new side to her that she's discovering for the first time. Both of these alter egos are a part of her, and by the end, they're side by side with her.
If we look at these three videos in a 3-act structure, Underwater is Act 1, showing us when Chuu first arrives in this new location and her still anxious to go out and explore. Howl is Act 2, where her inner anxieties build up and she's forced to go out to clear her mind. And Hitchhiker is Act 3, where all of her worries have faded and she's happily exploring the streets of Portugal. We're practically being shown a glimpse into Chuu's mind, a condensed version of what she probably felt after everything went down with Blackberry and how she began to heal from it. Out of all of the post-BBC releases so far, it feels the most personal, and I like that rather than trying to tie it to a grander narrative, they decided to keep it grounded and focus on Chuu herself. Whatever comes next, I'm excited for what other aspects of Chuu we'll be able to see next.
Loossemble is a combination of members I don't think any of us were expecting to get, but my god am I glad we did! The fact that we not only finally get to see some of these members in the spotlight showcasing their talents, unlike with, but we're also getting a continuing storyline that leans further into the sci-fi genre than any other LOONA release. And it's fantastic!
Don't get me wrong, I still love the mysterious and fantastical elements of the LOONAverse, but it's so cool to just see an actual spaceship and futuristic technology being used with no question of whether or not it's a metaphor for something. There's still plenty of mystery and intrigue, but for the most part, a lot of what's going on is either shown or told to us in a clear-cut fashion. The girls are searching for the rest of LOONA. Their group name literally means LOONA Assemble. They all have assigned roles on the ship, so on and so forth. And the best part about this is, if we have a question, the girls are actually able to answer them and talk about the lore.
When the older version of You and Go On are in the car, and it zaps and the car stops. Was that going back in time?
시간이 멈췄다기보다는 다시 현재로 돌아오는 거예요.
In the music video, someone in the shadows was watching you guys. In the new music video?
Yeah! 심사위원이에요.
Loossemble, the new music video, does it take place after LOONA, or is it its own timeline?
그건 비밀이에요. This is secret.
It's so refreshing to just see the members talking about their storyline in this capacity. Sure, they still have secrets to keep, but it feels like they're more engaged and knowledgeable about the lore compared to the previous eras. I don't know how much Jaden divulged about his vision to the girls, but looking specifically at 2020 onwards after he left, the girls seemed to only have the broad strokes of what was going on, only able to speculate or go off of a base level of what they were told.
Heck, there's a clip of Yves explaining some of her own lore, and Jinsel just looks utterly confused as if that was the first time she heard it. And it probably was, for all we know. To see something like this and knowing that the girls have a clear understanding of what's going on means the staff probably have a solid idea on what route they want to take for the storyline going forward, and that's reassuring. And speaking of the storyline, okay, so remember what I said in the earlier section about Vivi in Love and Live? About how she said she became human at the end of that music video? Yeah, about that.
How you were awake before everybody else was awake? How long were you awake for?
I'm always be awake because I'm
What's your favorite song?
Android.
6 months later.
I'm sorry. What am I supposed to do with this information? You're telling me that this whole time, Vivi's still an android? What does this mean?
Vivi becoming human at the end of Love and Live is meant to be a turning point for her character. It signified how she was able to become a part of LOONA. While the LOONAverse has mixed in elements of both the supernatural and scientific, I do wonder how an android like Vivi would suddenly be able to magically become flesh and blood human again. Maybe the transformation is more focused on her emotional humanity. Like, she's presumed to still be a robot, but she has a greater capacity for human emotion and expression than she did when we first saw her at the start of the MV. She also wouldn't need to eat or sleep, but she can choose to and it won't harm her body, as some sci-fi fantasy series have lore on aliens or robots that can do this.
Why does it have to be dinner? We get all the energy we need from our gems, and while our human constructs are capable of eating, I find it very uncomfortable.
I love eating. Feels weird.
And as if this revelation weren't crazy enough, in the next comeback, we get this.
Are you dead? What the fuck is up with that?
So, not only are we revisiting Vivi's android lore, but we're also recontextualizing Yojin's Lost in the Forest lore as her getting zapped by an alien spaceship.
And that's not even to mention that Gohan suddenly was able to blow up one of the robot alien drones with just her mind? Oh my god! Considering that CTD is being run by a former Blockberry staff, it makes me wonder how much of this is them repurposing old concepts that never properly got fleshed out. But just seeing that we're going back to these concepts, that we're actually gonna get to see them fleshed out to get a potential resolution to all of this? Guys, I'm so excited, you have no idea! Okay, I thought Chuu's first release was the most personal look into a member's mind state post-lawsuit, but then Yves decided to come and gut punch me with emotional damage. Before Yves released her solo EP, we got a short introductory film simply titled Ha-seyoung, Yves' real name. And there are absolutely no pretenses here. Nothing sci-fi related, no fantastical elements, no vague symbolism. This is just Yves opening up about what she's been feeling ever since the group left Blockberry. It honestly kind of baffles me that there were some toxic fans who brushed this off as just a horror concept because of the nightmare scene, or making lore jokes when that clearly is not the intent here. Yves isn't playing a character, she's portraying her real struggles and emotions. She strips back the persona of Yves the singer to show us the real her. That's why the video is titled after her real name. And at the very end, she's directly talking to us, as if she's both encouraging us and herself that she's going to be okay. And then we get to Loop itself.
Can't stop the 채같이 너 이미 다쳐버린 너 Looking in the mirror 거울 속에 비친
First of all, vibe. Second, I know this is probably gonna sound weird, but Yves' music compared to the other groups doesn't really feel as deeply connected to the grander lore, and I kinda like it that way. Similarly to Chuu, it feels like they decided to keep things very down to earth with Yves re-establishing her image as a solo singer. Her style of music feels so unique compared to the others, and it feels like we're getting to see a brand new side to her. And honestly, I gotta respect Yves for that. She's trying something new, and this feels like an honest expression of who she is. This re-debut got me really excited for Yves in a way I wasn't expecting. Whichever direction she decides to go next, whether it be trying out new genres or even pursuing acting, I'm curious to see where she'll go.
As of the time that I'm recording this now, we are officially close to 1 week before ARTMS' official debut with their album Doll and the title track Virtual Angel. Given this particular group is now being managed by Jhun, there are a myriad of varying reactions from fans, especially concerning the Cosmo app and the use of digital photo cards, which are also being done for their other girl group, S. I've already said my piece about Jhun, but to reiterate, I don't hold any strong personal feelings towards him and want to at least give him the benefit of the doubt, as it's clear he's very passionate about the projects that he works on. I'm already growing more curious to see what S will do going forward now that they've officially debuted as OT24, and I'm hopeful for the same to happen with ARTMS.
In regards to the storyline, everything that we've seen thus far has felt more or less what I can only describe as a soft reboot/sequel. They're mainly focusing on re-establishing the characters of the ARTMS members before starting a new storyline. It's still yet to be seen whether or not Jhun will disregard anything from So What onwards, but for now we'll just have to wait and see what they do. We start off with Odd Eye Circle, who essentially became Charlie's Angels in Air Force One, infiltrating this fancy party. It definitely feels like an aged up take on their free-spirited, assertive towards love concept that they were introduced with them standing up to authority but not necessarily seeking it, as they throw away the crown at the end. We don't get to see them use their odd eyes in the traditional sense, they cover them with eye patches, but we see them using some sort of power to stop a moving truck and... Wait, is that Heejin? Why does Heejin have an odd eye? Heejin's solo basically takes the concept of Vivid and flips it on its head. Where in Vivid, Heejin was working for a rich woman and sought a life of glitz and glamour and excitement, Heejin in Algorithm is now a princess who aspires to be a K-pop star, leaving behind her elegant palace and dresses to hang out with her friends, eat good food, and sing karaoke.
Since Hassel didn't get an MV for her song Plastic Candy, her introduction into ARTMS' worldview is with Algorithm, where she's seen comforting Heejin before her audition, and then later in Birth, where she's celebrating her birthday party alone. As such, we still don't have a ton to go off of her current character in the storyline. At the very least, she still seems to be leaning into her big sister/reader role, although I don't know if they ever officially clarified that Hassel is still the leader of ARTMS now. Regardless, they're also playing into the loneliness that she likely feels from not having the rest of the LOONA members around her. We also have 4 pre-releases for the upcoming album, and all of them start to give us an idea of the group's direction. Flower Rhythm, Candy Crush, and Air all bring back elements from the previous releases. Heejin's intro Kehwa is combined with references to Algorithm, Hustle's Plastic Candy, and Odd Eye Circle's Air Force One with lyrics that reference Butterfly and So What. It feels a bit more like an extension of what we saw of their past releases, but given a new twist on them. Flower Rhythm is a mostly performance-focused music video, while Candy Crush and Air are in a more casual setting, changing up the vibes with every release and being more laid back in regards to any lore hints. And then there's Birth.
This is everything I could have asked for in a dark LOONA concept. The gothic Lolita dresses matched with surreal storybook-esque paintings, contrasted by grungy streetwear and cool tones creating a cold and somber atmosphere. The towering figure of light standing over the girls like something out of a horror film. And the music!
I could get her ex-boyfriends 너를 찍는 광고 flyer Thinking I can talk back I've been rolling down my sleeping.
It's visceral, it's unsettling, it's powerful, but different from everything that we had gotten during the second era of LOONA being under BBC. As the first pre-release for ARTMS and one of the first showcasings of the group, aside from the Carol remake, it is an incredible introduction to what essentially is the rebirth of these members, quite literally in both meanings of the word, and the start of the next chapter in their story. There's also some apocalyptic imagery that calls back to So What, with the meteors and falling stars being shown in a few shots.
The comets are similar when they're coming down from the sky for Birth music video and So What music video. Is it the same?
Yeah, the same ARTMS.
Also, wow, this entire video really highlights the idea of the girls all being one, or coming from the goddess Artemis's being, even going as far as to refer to it as them being 5 egos of Artemis. Were those theorists who talked about YYXY being one being onto something there? Oh yeah, and speaking of YYXY,
the angel sing at first really doesn't make sense to me, but then I'm like, actually it can make sense because the biblical stuff can just stay in YYXY.
I thought we were done with Eden, what the fuck? Let's really talk about Virtual Angel for a second here. On top of the 4 pre-releases establishing Artemis's rebirth and referencing their prior releases before the group debut, we're also being brought back all the way to Eden lore. Now, the idea of the members returning to Eden or creating a new Eden is a pretty popular topic among orbits. We knew that Eden was a crucial part of the storyline, heck, there's a whole unit based in that concept, but I highly doubt Blockberry had any interest in actually revisiting it. Here though, we're all in. The album came with Eden invitation cards, Eden gets referenced in the lyrics at the very end of Virtual Angel, and the song was even originally titled Eden. Furthermore, where in Birth we saw the girls encounter a godlike light being and even seeming to emulate her by the end, we now see a group of girls worshipping and emulating the Artemis members. And then they're flying and have laser eyes all of a sudden. Don't know if I should be worried about that. All the while, a 6th girl who is dressed more normally is witnessing all of this, filming them with a camcorder. At the end, she sees the 5 members of Artemis dancing on the rooftop, and the final shot is her standing alone in the dark with 5 crosses floating in the air. Yeah, okay, should I be worried about this? The fact that we're even bringing back the Eden concept at all is a bit confusing, isn't it? After all, Eden was always portrayed as a bad place in pre-debut, a false utopia that the YYXY members had to escape from. But what does this mean for Artemis? Is the light being goddess we see them interact with a virtuous god or a manipulative one? Have the girls been corrupted by this higher power to spread the gospel of Eden? Or have they been able to turn things around and create a brand new Eden?
You guys talk about being an Eden, but in LOONA, during YYXY, Eden was not good. So I want to ask, is Eden good now? Or is it still bad?
Yeah. Eden now fit. Eden is so looks like high school, beautiful, and I like it. Happiness.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see what they do going forward, as there's likely a ton more Jaden has planned for ARTMS going forward. Also, we might be getting that ballad album after all, as Heejin and Hassel sang a completed version of one of the songs, now titled Blooming Moon, at one of her mini concerts.
I'll be there for you when your wings split. Letting go of you, this a heartbreak. In my anthem.
Hello everyone, I'm Misaki from the now inactive YouTube channel, the Rojak Squad. Thank you Ruka for the opportunity to have me here to share my thoughts on how the LOONAverse has developed over the years and how I feel about it. When I first became a baby bit in 2019, the first thing I did to get myself introduced to LOONA, oddly, no pun intended, was to watch theory videos of how each of the Moon Girls' stories connected to one another to create this one mysterious yet weirdly cohesive LOONAverse. The storytelling reminds me of From Software's famous Soulsborne franchise, where the story is shrouded in mystery and it's up to the audience to come up with their own conclusion or put in extra effort to find out what happened through every bit of detail in the world. Likewise, for the LOONAverse, this way of vague storytelling incites imagination to the audience, and it's something not many K-pop groups venture into from what I know. One core aspect of the LOONAverse I love that is prevalent throughout, be it through the lyrics or the music videos, is the concept of female empowerment, as generic as it may sound. It's interesting to watch the girls face some kind of inner conflict with themselves throughout their debut MVs. Like identity crisis as seen in Hustle's MV, or self-love in Haeju's MV, and then how they break free from the societal chains that bound them, like in So What. I love how ultimately they are spreading a message of being proud of who you are. As for present-day LOONA, I personally feel like they expand on the LOONAverse in their own ways, while keeping to the same core value of female empowerment and, well, finding your true self right now. For ARTMS, they feel like a prequel to whatever has happened in the LOONAverse. Loossemble feels like the aftermath of everything that happened to the real-life counterparts, but retold in a sci-fi setting and them trying to gather everyone once again. While Chuu and Yves are showing their vulnerabilities and their strength to overcome any pain through their soul-searching style of storytelling. And disclaimer though, on Yves, but that's actually what I think. Overall, I am really excited to see how the Moon Girls continue interweaving their stories as one, despite being separated, and proudly show that this, now multiverse, should be regarded as a golden standard of storytelling in the K-pop scene.
My name is Sydney. Something that I really love in regard to LOONA's storyline, first of all, would have to be the settings that they use. I think LOONA has used very unique settings in their videos, something somewhat similar to liminal spaces, pieces of artwork, and other settings that just them alone, even without the member present, make you think about them. It's almost like different sections of their video can be used as art pieces, and that makes it really, really interesting and mysterious at the same time. Another part that I personally love to look into is all of the parallel stories, member connections, things such as how are Hassel and Gowon so similar, the green and the Eden green, on opposite ends of the LOONA storyline, but their stories are the same and different at the same time. I really love looking into those sorts of parallels. And then I also just love the overall meaning of LOONA's story. It's always like creating a better version of yourself or your true self, looking into all of those things that you might have your doubts about, and becoming a more powerful, stronger person in the end, and inspiring everyone else around you to do the same. I also really love their method of storytelling. I think there's something special about leaving so much up to us to interpret and speculate about, instead of just writing it out plainly for us like some other K-pop storylines tend to do. It really makes you think very hard about, why do I think this way? What do I think this means? And what does that say about me as a person for what I think is happening in this video? So yeah, I really view LOONA like a piece of art. You go in and you, of course, have the artist's intention, but they don't always tell you the intention, and you have to kind of think a little bit harder about it. And in the process, you kind of learn something about yourself at the same time. So that's what makes me personally really love the storytelling of LOONA.
My favorite thing about LOONA has to be their consistency in music quality and concept. No matter what genre they're in, they'll always provide me with a song I love and an MV that calls back to their lore. I have had a lot of groups fall by the wayside because of the dip in music quality or concept, but LOONA and post-LOONA groups have remained my ults of ults because they always provide me with an earworm and an amazing concept. Another aspect of appreciation that doesn't go unnoticed is just how genuine the girls are. They truly love each other and what they do, and you can just see that in everything they say and do, whether it's the fact that they're still in this industry at all after everything they've been through, or them keeping their lore and concept going, or the fact that they consistently reference and hang out with each other and acknowledge that LOONA is 12. LOONA is so special, and I'll always love them.
Coming from my viewpoint of being a J-pop fan coming into the world of K-pop, story-driven groups with overarching narratives wasn't really common in either the world of J-pop or K-pop at the time. By the time I started getting into Dreamcatcher, I was starting to dip my toes into it, as their Nightmare storyline was still very early on in its development, as the first thing that I had ever watched from them was Fly High. LOONA was the first group that I actually saw have an overarching storyline where every music video was connected in some way, and all of the girls were portraying characters that had all of these unique struggles to them that were portrayed in interesting ways. From Vivi being an android, to the Odd Eye girls having superpowers, to the YYXY girls' journey through Eden, all of it was super interesting and engaging, and I wanted to approach it from multiple angles. That's why I started writing my fanfic series. It was to help develop my own theories, and also to approach it as a writer, trying to interpret where the story was going, what the characters' motivations were, and what the original intent could have been. Or at the very least, I would be able to make up my own interpretation that fitted the vision that I wanted to create based on how I was consuming the story. By the time that the girls had their injunctions and started leaving Blockberry, I didn't feel like it was appropriate to continue trying to write a story, as things were going in wildly different directions in real time, and I didn't really think I could keep up with that anymore. I think eventually I would have ended up becoming a fan of LOONA one way or another. I think I would have eventually had learned about them somehow and would have found out about their music and their storyline and wanted to do that same process of approaching their story from multiple angles and interpreting it with my own writing. It really was a unique experience that changed my life, as by the time that I had started getting into them, COVID happened, a lot of stuff was starting to change in my life, and since I couldn't really go anywhere, I started diving more into LOONA and other K-pop groups and falling in love with the story more and more. It was pretty integral for me to learn about this story, to see these girls and their journey all the way to where we are at the present day. Seeing their message of perseverance and unity and hope, even after everything that went down with the company, it
really is inspiring. I don't think it can be stated enough just what an impact LOONA made to the K-pop industry, from their unconventional debut to the way they stood their ground against an abusive company and won. And at the core of that is a storyline that's chock full of symbolism and metaphor and unanswered questions giving way to new theories and ideas even now. Had things gone differently, the group we know as LOONA today probably wouldn't have existed at all. Like lightning in a bottle, these 12 girls came together with the right people at the right place at the right time to create something unique that still resonates with a ton of fans today. Even after all the crap that they went through, even though everything has changed now, there's still a part of me that wishes to see it through to the end in the hopes that we'll get to see them together as 12 again.
Despite it all, even if the past has been soured by actions that can't be undone, knowledge that can't be unlearned, I still felt the passion, the love, the excitement, the intrigue, the expectations to see it all up until this point. I want to keep going forward with that same amount of feeling I had when I started this. Even if it's a mess and confusing at times, even if it's still not perfect, someone was trying to tell a story that captured mine as well as many others' hearts. Even if it gets overwritten or retconned, or a theory I had was proven wrong, I want to engage with this story. Because reality is unpredictable, and that's reflected in our fiction, yes, but fiction can also influence reality. That's basically what happened with LOONA, wasn't it? Everything flipped, and now we journey through the free, to the moon and back, searching for our friends, with our little heroes, breaking the loop. Even if it's imperfect and ironic and unpredictable, I still love this story, and I love the ones who brought it to the world through their music.
The eyes of the butterfly are eclipsed when the night comes. In the pitch darkness, the butterfly cannot do anything, though the will to fly towards the morning.